This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Coronavirus cases across the globe nearing the 500,000 mark as countries heighten their response. G20 nations meet in teleconference to discuss economic rescue and war on COVID-19. And second batch of Chinese billionaire Jack Ma's anti-coronavirus donations arrive in Addis Ababa. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme. In business, Somalia is set to re-engage with international lenders after years in isolation. And in sports, Tunisian female boxer continues Olympics preparation despite pushback to 2021. Around the world, more than 470,000 people have been infected in over 170 countries and regions. Over 21,000 people have died. Europe and the United States have seen their cases surge. Italy has the highest death toll in the world at more than 7,500. And over 74,000 people have been infected in the country. Spain's death toll has overtaken China's with over 3,600 deaths. The country now has over 49,000 confirmed cases. The United States has reported more than 15,000 new cases, bringing the total to over 69,000. Iran has reported over 2,000 new cases with over 140 new deaths. On the Chinese mainland, there are no reports of new domestic cases, but 67 imported cases have been confirmed in 13 regions. In Hubei province, where the outbreak began, active cases have dropped again to less than 3,500. Nearly 400 patients were discharged from hospital on Thursday. 6 more deaths have been reported. The G20 is holding an emergency virtual summit today, hosted by current chair Saudi Arabia. Leaders of the world's major economies will discuss how to contain the coronavirus pandemic and stabilize the global economy. Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump will join the video conference, but it's looking as though major players are still divided on how to square that circle. CGTN's Yo Yang has more.
For the first time in the history of the G20, the coronavirus is forcing leaders of the world's major economies to meet in a tele-summit instead of a face-to-face. The group played a key role in pulling the world out of financial crisis over 10 years ago, but this time the situation may be far more intractable.
The outlook for global growth. For 2020, it is negative. A recession at least as bad as during the global financial crisis or worse.
The International Monetary Fund believes the faster the virus stops, the quicker the economy recovery will be. But curbing the spread of the virus within a short time frame seems an increasingly tough challenge.
This virus is very dangerous. And we have already counted more than 16,000 deaths. If you remember, we have been saying for more than 2 months now, this virus is public enemy number one.
The rapid spread of the pandemic is already causing huge economic disruption. In the United States, for example, the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits has seen its biggest surge since 2012, as companies in the service sector lay off massive numbers of workers. That explains why President Trump is so eager to get Americans' businesses restarted.
I'm also hopeful to have Americans working again by that Easter, that beautiful Easter day.
But there are only 18 days left for the U.S. leader to meet his target. and the US health experts say the infection cases in the country are still likely to keep rising.
Our new cases will continue to surge because we're still working on our backlog.
So far, many governments have adopted measures both try to contain the disease and support their economies. G20 financial chiefs earlier have already agreed a joint action plan to support financial stability for emerging markets and developing economies. But whether the bloc's leaders will reach an agreement on measures addressing both the global economy and the public health is still unclear. As they try to balance economic stabilization with disease control, they may first need to decide between closer cooperation or playing power politics as usual. Yu Yang, CGTN.
In Africa, the rising number of COVID-19 cases is raising concern. There are now over 2,700 cases in 46 countries. Several governments have announced lockdowns and other tough measures to curb the spread of the virus. Let's now take a look at the numbers by region. Northern Africa has the highest number of confirmed cases. Tunisia has announced 54 new cases. Egypt has 456. Libya has reported its first case of COVID-19. In Western Africa, Burkina Faso has the highest number of cases in the region with 146. Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria have each recorded new cases. Senegalese President Macky Sall declared a state of emergency along with a curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. local time. Eastern Africa is currently a lesser affected region on the continent with 147 cases. Kenya recorded its first recovery but announced 3 more new cases. Rwanda still has the highest number in the region with 41 confirmed cases. In Central Africa, Cameroon has the highest number of cases. The Democratic Republic of Congo has declared a state of emergency. The capital, Kinshasa, will also be isolated. This means travel will be banned in and out of the capital. Well, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in South Africa has spiked to 709, with 155 new infections confirmed. The country will go into a strict 21-day lockdown at midnight on Thursday in an attempt to avoid the virus spreading further. Well, let's get you more on South Africa's plan for a lockdown starting tonight. Angelo Coppola joins us live now from Johannesburg. Angelo, tell us how South Africans are preparing for this expected lockdown.
Well, what's happening at the moment, Karen, is everybody's out in the shops, getting their supplies, stocking up to try and make sure that they avoid as little time on the streets after midnight tonight. The shops are all packed. Everybody's in there buying groceries, for example, buying fresh fruit. And these shops will be staying open during the course of the 21 days, but people aren't taking any chances. Whether they're going to be able to pack all their stuff into the fridges or not and freeze the stuff while they're waiting, we're not sure how that one's going to play out just yet. We've been canvassing people on the streets to see why they're actually stockpiling. So I'm going to chat to somebody who's just popped in here now, and he's going to be telling us about how are you preparing for the lockdown tomorrow?
First of all, I'm from the poorest, so we don't have money. So what's happening is the preparation for us is not going to be counting. The people who are preparing here are the rich people, the middle class. We are the poorest. For example, I just met up with the car guard. I asked him the same question, my brother, how are we going to work on this? And he said to me, we're just going to live by the grace of God. We don't know how we're going to survive. And that touched me dearly because we don't have the solution that was put in place by the government was a solution for the rich and the middle class, not for the poor. How are they going to combat the sharks, the former settlement? There's no solution for them.
Now, tell me something for you now. Are you doing anything differently in terms of preparing for the shutdown for yourself? I mean, I know we understand that the poor are in a really difficult position here, but for yourself, are you going and stockpiling? Can you afford to stockpile?
I find it totally ridiculous because still the stores will still be open. The same stores that are still currently open, they'll still be open. There's going to be time that is regulated for us to go to the stores. So to be honest, I didn't do any preparations because the same store that are open tomorrow they'll be opened.
Thank you very much.
More than welcome, thanks.
So we have a situation where it's one set of rules or one set of actions for the more affluent and one set of rules or actions for the less affluent. And that's just the nature of South Africa as it stands right now. Karen?
Okay, thank you very much for that, Angelo. That was CGTN's Angelo Coppola there in South Africa. They are going under lockdown tonight, midnight tonight. Moving on to other news now. In a matter of hours, major markets and stores in the Nigerian city of Lagos will shut down to check the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Residents have flooded markets in the city to stock up on food and other essential supplies for the 7-day shutdown. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with that story.
It's hours to the partial lockdown, and understandably, markets in Lagos are unusually packed. Although the city's governor had made it clear food markets and others selling essential medical products are excluded from the partial lockdown, residents are not taking chances. But traders are now taking advantage of the seeming panic buying, with some hiking their prices.
As you can see, I'm just trying to get a few stuff so that at least I will not get hungry for the I think they say 7 days.
Things are kind of cost. So many things are cost. Meat, pepper, rice, stuff like that. Everything are cost just because of the coronavirus.
I came here, I found out that things are way too expensive. And that is really giving us concern because even the actual money you brought is not as far as what you're going to get here today.
This time everything costs. Most of fish, rice, most of okra, pepper. You are selling one basket of tomatoes, 14,000. It's very too costly.
And as it is with markets, so it is with banks. Customers besieging their banks or ATM machines to collect cash. With most of the banks strict on social distancing and not allowing more than 2 persons into their banking hall at a time, it's become common to find long lines in front of banks. In the midst of all this, the governor of the city keeps appealing for calm.
I'm assured that we will win this battle as we've won others before this. And I'm confident that with all your support, and most importantly, by the special grace of God, this also will pass us soon, very shortly.
The Nigeria commercial capital has now recorded a total of 30 out of the 45 confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country. The authorities of the city have made it clear they would take further measures if the disease continues to spread, not ruling out a total lockdown. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
In Ethiopia, more than 4,000 prisoners will be released in an effort to minimize the possible spread of the coronavirus. The nation's Attorney General said inmates with minor offences, as well as women and minors, will be among those freed. CGTN's Giram Chala has more from Addis Ababa.
Ethiopia's decision to free 4,011 prisoners in an attempt to halt the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic inside the country has been welcomed by some observers. According to the country's Attorney General Adanich Habebe, prisoners who have committed relatively minor breaches of the law will be the majority in the list of those released. Then women and children follow. The Attorney General also said foreigners imprisoned due to smuggling and drug trafficking will be freed and immediately deported to their respective countries. When these 4,000 plus inmates are freed, the Ethiopian authorities said they will have to undergo serious medical checkups for the coronavirus before they rejoin the community. And any of them with symptoms of the virus will be quarantined for the next 14 days. Similarly, names of the freed inmates have already been given to police in their respective addresses to follow them up and bring them back if and when they are found breaking the law. Grumjala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
A Kenyan international relations analyst has condemned US President Donald Trump's comments calling COVID-19 the Chinese virus. Professor Peter Kagwanja says linking a disease to a region or group of people can fuel negative sentiment, which is counterproductive. He spoke to CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa.
These stereotypical, statements about things really are very shallow. They're very unhelpful. Coronavirus is not. It's not an ethnic disease. It is not a racial disease. It is not a regional disease. It's a threat to humanity. It is unfortunate that it's the Chinese people who were hit by it first. I think Trump is just voicing a very popular feeling. It's rhetorical, but it is speaking to a certain constituency. I've seen, similar statements in social media saying a virus. I think those are the real threat. Those kind of people saying that are the real threat, because they are kind of telling the non-Chinese, the non-Asians, that you are immune to the disease. This is the kind of statement going across. The second message is that if we get it, it is because it's the Chinese disease. Those of us in Africa know how, spurious those kind of statements can be. When you start treating a disease like a genetic inheritance of a certain race, then you have missed it. Because xenophobia can only be dealt with by telling people to stop negative rhetoric.
How should the rest of the world react to these claims?
We need the world to unite behind the fight against COVID virus. We need a united front like the one we put in 2008, 2009 world financial crisis. If the world did not unite behind the crisis, the global economy would have collapsed and we would now be telling a different story. China helped a lot in the recovery of the world from financial crisis of 2008. China has recovered very well from coronavirus, from Wuhan to other areas that were affected. And I think this time around, I think it also needs to help the world to recover from COVID virus. There are so many medical questions, medical gaps that need to be filled, that collaboration globally is the only way to deal with the disease, not negative rhetoric of it is a Kikuyu disease, it is an Irish disease, it is an English disease, it is a French disease, it's a Chinese disease. That is not helpful. I don't think so. China has seen the threat. I'm sure its doctors are into it. I'm sure it is aligning all its programs and all its assistance to Africa to the new threat of COVID virus. So it is important that we stop blaming China and tap what can come from China.
The second batch of donations of medical aid for Africa from Chinese billionaire Jack Ma has arrived in Ethiopia. The donations include coronavirus testing kits, masks and protective suits. Here's Kiram Chala with more.
We've witnessed yet another delivery of aid from China. An Ethiopian Airlines cargo plane brought the second batch of medical kits from mainland China. These will be distributed to the rest of the continent in a few days' time.
As
per the promise, we confirm receiving the donation from Jack Ma Foundation to Africa. So far, what we have received is 60 million masks, 1.1 million testing kits and 60,000 protective suits. In addition to those, today we have received cooler boxes to be used for medication transportation. So generally, Jack Ma has fulfilled his promises today.
Ethiopia, through its national airline, is distributing the donated medical kits to the rest of Africa. About 19 countries have already received their medical equipment, and among them are countries such as Kenya, Egypt, Sudan, Gabon, Ghana and DRC.
As Dr. Abiy Ahmed agreed to handle the logistics services of transporting the medical aid to the rest of Africa, Until now, 19 African countries have equally received their share of the equipment. The delivery work has continued and will be completed in no time.
There is more good news for Africa from China. More donated medical kits are on the way to the continent. That's according to the coordinators of the aid efforts aimed at stopping the spread of COVID-19 in Africa. Group Chara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Ugandan pop star Bobi Wine is using music as a tool to warn of the dangers of coronavirus. Together with fellow musician and activist Nubian Lee, they've produced a song titled Coronavirus Alert. So far, 14 cases of COVID-19 have been reported in the country.
The bad news is that everyone is a potential victim. But the good news is that everyone is a potential solution. Sensitize the masses to sanitize, keep a social distance and quarantine. Stop! The coronavirus is sweeping over mankind. Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Discipline and personal hygiene, and make sure you regularly wash your hands. Keep a distance from everyone. Report anything like a symptom. Serious fever is a symptom. Dry cough is a symptom. Walkway tamula is a symptom. Itchy eyes and flu is a symptom. Everybody must be alert. It's a global pandemic we can never take for granted. Kila mtu must be alert. It's a matter of life we can never take for granted. Coronavirus is sweeping over mankind. Everybody must be alert.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
To Chad now, where Boko Haram militants have killed at least 92 soldiers. President Idriss Déby has called it the deadliest assault on Chad's military in the history of the country. The 7-hour attack took place early on Monday at an army base in Boma, an island in the Lake Chad region. Army vehicles were destroyed and the militants captured military arms, which they later carried off in speedboats. Déby visited the site of the attack on Tuesday. Boko Haram has been expanding its insurgency campaign in the vast marshy area where it borders with Cameroon, Chad, Niger and Nigeria. We continue with our special series, Africa Battles COVID-19. Several African countries have come up with stringent measures to contain COVID-19. Today, Lindy Ntongana looks at some of the intervention measures being implemented by African governments.
Our special series, Africa Battles COVID-19, continues. Now, several African countries have adopted stringent measures to control the spread of the coronavirus. Countries like South Africa, Senegal, DRC, Egypt, Kenya and Nigeria have found themselves at the forefront of the battle against the disease. Well, as the medical world races to find a vaccine for COVID-19, public awareness is proving to be key in countries like Nigeria in halting the spread of the disease. Deji Badmus tells us more.
It's the resumption of work for the day at this SME in Lagos. Since Nigeria confirmed its first case of COVID-19, this has become a daily routine at this office. Workers must first use the hand sanitizer before they move into the main office.
Since the news broke out, we have sanitizers at the office, which we use regularly. As long as you are inside the office, or as long as you're coming into the office, you're expected to use it. And even once you step out and you're coming back to the office, you're expected to use it. So we use it almost every time. As long as you are in the office, you're expected to use the sanitizers.
The constant use of hand sanitizers is part of a broader public awareness campaign launched by the government in the wake of the COVID-19 outbreak in Nigeria. And that campaign has since been intensified across various media platforms in the country.
The electronic billboard behind me is one of the multimedia platforms being deployed for the public awareness campaign. Its strategic location at this very busy road intersection means anyone passing through this place would not miss the message. And then millions of people pass through this area on a daily basis.
We need the government to provide more of this, so as to create awareness for the over 20 million of Lagosians.
There are fears that if there was any massive COVID-19 outbreak in this country as seen elsewhere, Nigeria's vulnerable health infrastructure would find it extremely difficult to cope. It's a reason why the country is investing time and resources on public awareness campaigns.
We don't have the isolation center, or quarantine places that can take charge of a large number of people. And we know that this number can double within a short period. It can triple and quadruple within a short period. So what we need to do is, as we're closing schools, as we're preventing people from going to churches, we have to strengthen campaigns in different languages. It must be as local as possible.
The campaigns are achieving positive results. For instance, awareness in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, which is the first to record a confirmed case of COVID-19 in the country, is relatively high.
Personally, I've been taking the precautionary measures that we are asked to take, like wash our hands steady, go with your nose mask. Just like myself, I don't have any nose mask, but I make use of my hand sanitizer. Anywhere I get to meet a stand where water is available, I wash my hands and make use of my hand sanitizer. It's always with me.
But there are so many places in this country where so much still needs to be done to get the people better informed about COVID-19 and the measures they need to take to protect themselves.
And here is one such place, a remote community in the northwestern Kaduna state. Villagers here know little about COVID-19 and how to avoid infection.
To tell you the truth, we know nothing about the virus. We only just heard there is a disease that kills people and that if you contract it, you will die. But honestly, I don't know the name of the disease.
There are many communities like this scattered across the country and almost completely cut off from the public awareness campaigns seen in major cities like Lagos. Such communities also have poor health systems and education levels remain low.
I expect the local government people to be on the streets, ringing bell, directing people, telling them what to do, and also, if it is possible, for them to install hand washing instrument or capability in some key public places, that people can just easily get there, put water in their hand and wash, and move forward and pick leaflets if they need to read about it.
Then there's the danger of conspiracy theories. If left unchecked, they can hamper campaigns to tackle the spread of COVID-19. For now, the Nigerian government is focusing on enhanced awareness and tougher measures to cap the spread of the pandemic. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
For years now, the Democratic Republic of Congo has battled the deadly Ebola virus. Our correspondent brings us this report on how the country is now handling the outbreak of yet another infectious disease.
In August 2018, the DRC's health ministry reported an Ebola outbreak in the eastern town of Mangina. It was the country's 10th Ebola outbreak, and it turned out to be the world's second worst after the West African epidemic of 2014. More than 2,200 deaths were recorded in the east of the country. The last Ebola patient was discharged from a hospital in the eastern town of Beni earlier this month. But the disease has left many families in pain.
I lost 13 of my relatives to Ebola. My mother, aunties and children all died from that disease. Only 4 of my relatives got cured.
At the peak of the outbreak in April 2019, more than 100 Ebola cases were being reported every week. According to the Ministry of Health, no new case of Ebola has been recorded over the past 4 weeks. But the country is now struggling to contain the coronavirus. More than 40 cases have been reported in the capital, Kinshasa. That frightens Stephanie Mastaki, who witnessed the suffering caused by Ebola.
This new disease with a strange name has really scared us because we lost relatives to Ebola. It has changed the way I live. We've been told to keep washing our hands at all times.
Mastaki advises her fellow citizens to follow safety instructions issued by health experts to avoid catching the coronavirus.
We should maintain high standards of cleanliness and always wash our hands. People should avoid crowded places and keep a distance of about 1 meter when talking to other people.
The healthcare system in the DRC has been weak for many decades due to conflict. That has given some citizens reason to believe the government won't be able to handle the COVID-19 outbreak.
Our government had deployed health officials at our airport to screen all passengers coming into the country. I find it puzzling that they failed to detect the coronavirus in a traveler who came from France. That shows how weak our surveillance is.
The DRC government has suspended flights from countries with many cases of coronavirus and ordered the closure of schools, bars, and other public places to limit the spread of coronavirus. But that has raised concern about the livelihood of low-income earners who live from hand to mouth.
So it behooves upon the government to ensure that at least the people will be fed. And for that to happen, a comprehensive plan, should be designed to see how the city will continue to be furnished with food and how this food can be made available to the population.
The coronavirus outbreak has further put a strain on the DRC's already overstretched healthcare system that's struggling to contain other diseases like measles, polio, cholera, and monkeypox. Chris Sachamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
As more and more cases of COVID-19 are confirmed in South Africa, response measures, including education and training at designated hospitals, are becoming more urgent. Angela Coppola has more from Johannesburg.
There are a couple of priorities that need to be managed in the process of treating a COVID-19 sufferer. A possible COVID-19 patient is identified at a port of entry using temperature scanning equipment. The patient then waits at the airport clinic for a team from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases. The emergency response team arrives to take the patient to a designated hospital. At the hospital entrance, an isolation team takes over and escorts the patient to an isolation ward. The patient's recent travels are noted, as well as their medical history. The team draws blood and sends the sample to an NICD lab for processing. If the results come back negative for COVID-19, the person is discharged. If the results are positive, the patient remains in isolation. The team monitors the patient's vital signs and administers medication. They observe the patient for the next 14 days or more. and continue to test the patient's blood. After the isolation period and once there are no more symptoms, the patient has then recovered.
On the continent, Egypt continues to bear the brunt of COVID-19, reporting a significantly high number of cases. And as those numbers continue to rise, the country is working to beef up its capacity in its health facilities.
Every plane arriving in Egypt used to be greeted warmly. Flights from abroad meant good business for a nation that relies heavily on tourism. But that was before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now every arrival raises worries over the possible spread of the coronavirus.
For long, the Egyptian quarantine facility at Cairo Airport has been known to take extreme measures, and we're still looking for other diseases other than COVID-19. We take tough measures because it's part of our job to take care of the health security of the country.
When they arrive, all passengers must get checked for fever. They're also obliged to fill a form with their address and contacts. Quarantine officials are then supposed to follow up their progress over the next 2 weeks. Before entering the main hallway of Cairo Airport, passengers coming from destinations the authorities here consider a risk are guided to a special facility where the entire flight get tested for COVID-19. Blood samples are taken. Thanks to the rapid test kits Egypt recently received from China, the results are ready after just 15 minutes.
The rapid test kits made a big difference because they are more precise than measuring temperature. Recently, we've detected many cases before people even displayed symptoms.
I think these are crucial steps. Honestly, I feel comfortable when I see these measures. On our way here, nothing happened at the airport. My brother went back to Germany this week. In the airport, there are no checkups. That makes us concerned. What I see here makes me feel Egypt is a responsible country.
There was a lot of panic involved, but like in Toronto, it was like more, it was safer, I guess, for me personally, because the airport wasn't as crowded as JFK, so I felt safer there. And then when we got to New York, I was like people weren't wearing masks or anything, and it wasn't taken care of like khalas. So yeah, that was when I started panicking. So it makes me proud, like, to come back and like, it's way safer here. I feel safer here.
Once they get notified of a case, the Egyptian authorities begin investigations. They isolate everyone who could be involved.
When a case emerges, we take samples from all who came in contact. For one case, the number of those who came in contact directly or indirectly was 3,875. Among them, 2,550 in his company. All of them have been quarantined. We've deployed 3 medical teams for them to follow up with them.
The Egyptian armed forces are leading a massive disinfection campaign to sanitize all public facilities and locations in the country.
There are extreme measures being taken in Egypt. Anything that could present a source of threat to the Egyptian people, even by a minor percentage, we will not hesitate to take any measures to stand against any possible infection.
Egypt has currently closed its airports to international flights. Schools and universities are in a lockdown. This week, prayers in churches and mosques have been stopped, and commercial stores have been ordered to close every day at 7 o'clock in the evening. Museums and tourist sites have also shut their doors. Egypt is doing its best to stop the wave of COVID-19 infection. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, time now for our Correspondent's Perspective segment. In March 2020, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has been battling Ebola, saw the last Ebola patient discharged. Our correspondent, Chris Ochomuringa, was there to witness this major achievement. Earlier, I spoke to him to understand how the DRC is handling another infectious disease just after battling Ebola. Just talk us through what the mood in the country was like when that last Ebola patient was discharged.
Lindy, there was a lot of excitement, especially in Beni, one of the epicenters of the outbreak. And not just there, but across the country. Congolese people have been living in fear for 2 years because of the Ebola outbreak. And so people danced and celebrated. They're saying now the disease is coming to an end and their lives will go back to normal. But healthcare officials have told them not to celebrate yet because they have to wait for 42 days to pass before they declare the outbreak over.
Certainly that is a milestone in itself, but it must be something of an anticlimax for the people of the DRC to have learned about the COVID-19 outbreak. Just tell us how the country took this news.
Well, there was a lot of fear, there was panic and there was anger. But people have now come to terms and they've had to change their way of life because they have been following what's happening across the world, the number of deaths, and this being the capital city with a population of about 13 million people, there's fear that, you know, if the disease really spreads, it will kill very many people. So very big change in how Congolese live their lives. Many Congolese are fun-loving people, and so they will have to keep away from such gatherings, and that is really going to is all aimed at, you know, preventing the spread of this disease. Lindy?
Chris, tell us what lessons were learned in dealing with the Ebola outbreak that can be applied now in the fight against COVID-19.
The first lesson is about surveillance. It's a very critical issue. You know, when this Ebola outbreak struck the DRC, many health officials confused it for other ailments. And so they did not give the right treatment, they did not isolate people, and that caused the disease to spread. But then after international health experts came in and, you know, confirmed that this was Ebola, they put in place surveillance mechanism to detect the disease early, and they have spread it across the country, not just in the east where the outbreak was occurring. And so that is also something that they're doing with coronavirus. They're training all healthcare workers across the country to be able to detect coronavirus and isolate people quickly, so that it's going to be part and parcel of the healthcare strategy in the DRC.
Join us again tomorrow as we take a look at COVID-19 and its impact on trade. Back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Lindy. Well, we are going to a short break now. We've got all the business coming up, including Somalia set to re-engage with international lenders after years in isolation. And Tunisia's central bank cuts interest rates to cushion businesses amid the coronavirus storm. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank say Somalia has taken the necessary steps to begin receiving debt relief under the Enhanced Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. After 30 years outside the international financial system, this agreement will reopen access to additional financial resources to strengthen the economy, help improve social conditions, raise millions out of poverty, and generate sustainable employment for Somalis. Last week, Somalia's Ministry of Health confirmed the country's first case of COVID-19. Since then, concerns have been raised over the country's ability to cope with a potential outbreak, given the ongoing security challenges and its under-resourced public health programs. The Executive Board of the Central Bank of Tunisia has cut key interest rates by 100 basis points to 6.75%. The move is aimed at cushioning the impact of the coronavirus to the national economy. Adnan Shuashi has the details.
Due to the negative impact of coronavirus on the economic and social situation in Tunisia, professional organizations had called for measures to support millions of employees, especially the revision of the interest rate.
Cutting the key interest rate by 100 basis points will increase people's purchasing power. Millions of employees are at home. Many people could lose their jobs due to the overall decline in economic activity.
The Director General of Financial Stability and Risk Management stressed the banking sector's key contribution to states' efforts in supporting enterprises by allowing postponement of repayments to individuals and enterprises until September 2020.
The central bank is taking the necessary measures to meet banks' liquidity needs and to support all efforts to contain this crisis and its implications for economic activity in general and for businesses in particular. We will protect enterprises and keep jobs by providing additional resources from April 1st.
The head of state stressed at his meeting with the central bank governor the need to identify solutions to support entrepreneurs during this economic situation faced by the country.
I have briefed the president about the measures being taken to support those who have problems in terms of liquidity or credit payment, besides bringing bank services closer and ensuring liquidity to customers without applying additional charges.
The central bank governor noted that if the spread of the virus is not controlled, the performance of the tourist sector as well as that of the air and sea transport sectors and the industrial sector could decline as a result of falling exports after lower demand from partner countries affected and difficulties in importing raw materials and semi-products. Members of the Executive Board of the Central Bank of Tunisia have expressed their readiness to respond to the increasing economic demands of the COVID-19 crisis, such as economic regression and financial difficulties affecting businesses and individuals. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
COVID-19 is redefining global business. Egypt is one of the countries seeing rapid shifts in consumer habits. As more and more people are staying, working and studying at home, they're also buying from home. Some industries have collapsed while others have quickly adapted to the new market changes. CGTN's Adel El Mahrouki has more on these resilient businesses and how they're coping with COVID-19.
COVID-19 has pushed millions to buy. Consumer goods, detergents, pharmaceutical products are booming. But while Egypt was confident in the products' reserves it had, the virus sparked a new challenge.
We are facing a problem in distribution. The inventory is available. A product like face masks was always here in the pharmacies. No one wanted. Today, every household in Egypt wants a face mask. No one was prepared for that. The product is available, but the clients can't reach it. I believe that's an important lesson learned.
With global trade slowing down, Egyptian producers had to innovate products to fill in the market gap. More importantly, they had to reach clients and inform them about these new preventive supplies now available. With the country gradually shutting down, everyone went online.
Digital solutions and product distributions online have grown. We estimate at least 80% growth in the past few weeks. Their share will not shrink after the virus. Their importance in the market has become significant. Their existence has saved industries.
But that spike on e-businesses has pressed the telecommunication networks in Egypt, which are witnessing unprecedented traffic. Companies are working from homes. Schools and universities have shifted within days to e-learning. The startup scene in Egypt and digital solutions are booming like no time before, thanks to COVID-19. The virus is speeding up Egypt's digital transformation, and if that doesn't fuel the next wave of digital innovation, nothing else will. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
All of the sports news coming up for you after the break, including Tunisian female boxer continues Olympics preparation despite push to 2021.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
The International Olympic Committee is working with sports bodies to arrange for a July-August 2021 Summer Games in Tokyo and is hoping to announce a decision within the coming month. Australia Olympic Committee Board Chair John Coates, who is also head of the IOC's Coordination Commission for the Tokyo Games, told media that the Games would have to be held between the Wimbledon Championship, scheduled to end on July the 10th next year, and the US Open in September. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe has said that all sports will need to make compromises with the Tokyo 2020 Olympics being postponed until sometime next year. Coe suggested on Tuesday that next year's Eugene World Athletics Championships could slip to 2022 as a consequence of Tokyo 2020 being postponed for a year. But in an interview with Reuters on Wednesday, the double Olympic champion said nothing was off the table.
Nothing is ruled in or out. We have to just really understand what this landscape is. And of course, as an international federation, I do also have 6 continental groups that make up the World Athletics. They too will be figuring out how they will be staging their continental championships. And of course, the Europeans, which is very important to all of us, the European championships are scheduled to take place towards the end of this year after the Olympic Games, had they not been postponed, into August and September. So there's a twin challenge there about where would they go and not buttress up against an Olympic Games and a World Championships and other events. And we're only really talking about athletics now. You know, when you throw into the mix, you know, just other concepts, the European Football Championships have moved a year. You know, you then start coming up against World Cups and Winter Games. This is going to take some thinking about, but that's really, we do have a little bit of thinking time now to be able to make sure we do that in a way that's respectful, but recognises the need for flexibility here.
Tunisian athlete Mariam Homrani booked her qualification for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games by reaching the final in the Africa Zone Qualification tournament in Dakar. The Tunisian champion has now been forced to stay home following the global spread of COVID-19. This has, however, not stopped the boxer from continuing with her preparations.
Mariam has complied with the general lockdown and prevention measures in Tunisia. The boxer is not authorized to go to the gym or to run in the club. Despite the Olympics postponement, she continues her preparation at home.
I want to be ready for any future boxing match or tournament, even if the Olympics are not taking place. Qualifying for the Olympics was hard. I am disappointed, but it's a wise decision to protect public health.
The 29-year-old athlete is the luckiest in her discipline. In fact, Mariam's coach is her husband, Ahmed, a former champion and boxing savvy.
My wife has made many sacrifices. She lost 20 kilograms after giving birth to our first child. She won the Tunisia Championship and joined the national boxing team, then qualified to the African Games and the Olympics. We'll travel to Japan next year, when the coronavirus crisis is over.
Mariam remembers how she qualified for the final of the Olympic qualification tournament at the expense of Congolese Yomba Naomi after the referee's ruling in the first round. The 27-year-old athlete is aware that the tournament in Dakar could be the last one for this season.
I was mentally and physically ready for the Tokyo Olympics. Now I'll adapt as I have one more year for preparation. I'll continue my training as usual.
The Tunisian boxer is training at home while raising her child. She's also trying to live a normal life amid the COVID-19 crisis and the general lockdown in the country. Boxing has become popular among women in Tunisia. The qualification of Mariam Homrani for the Summer Olympics has encouraged more people to practice this noble but difficult sport. Thousands of women and girls will resume normal activity after the end of the coronavirus crisis. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
United States Anti-Doping Agency Chief Travis